I wasn't formally trained. Um, I just basically pick a lot up from the news. I own many rich leatherback books. I missed the first year of football due to American foreign campaign funding policies. Yes, Saudi Taliban is still Taliban. I was already reading a little bit by then, Greek roots, suffixes. So instead of playing football that first year, a lot of reading, video games. My grandfather was a pressman, and he always saved, ever since 63, he saved all the headlines in the attic. But I just grew up with headlines all over the house. When I was a kid, under the HW, they just taught some of this stuff in school. I mean, knew what Eagle Danger was. I understand there's a bit of a funding gap between where, you know, hometown and deep south, but I know I've read a few of Patrick Smith's books. I know why the Florida Everglades are protected, and I don't, hate animals or whatever, but the situation is that Florida's greatest natural resource is being squandered while everybody complains about the climate. I went out to the res one day to go to the VA, and when I came home, a couple of feds came to my house, told me the Seminole uh, don't want me on the res again. That's all right. So you're gonna be staying there then? You'll have ample opportunity to say it to my face. The first girl I liked when I got here was anyway. So I'm on the impression it wasn't exactly their choice to live in a swamp. They got chased into Florida, and while I was on the res, I saw them buying gas. They want jobs. I know that there are many and diverse definitions for fascism, and Mussolini's was, basically corporate interests. I focus more on the right. So my operant definition of fascism is the use of force to uh, convert someone to your mode of thought. Rationality no longer plays a part, but as opposed to uh, inherents like divine right and um, the schools of nobility, divinity, and stoicism, or rational authority. I mean, you can invoke whatever you want, but we can talk about it, or, I mean, I'm twice your size. Look at you, look at me. Fascism is flat earth. That's when, you voted wrong. You can forgive that on my behalf. There's no rational argument for punishing us by stripping our constitutional rights because your authority to penalize us in any way, shape, or form, any powers of arrest on the land hinge upon the fulfillment of the guarantee, satisfaction of those rights. So get back in your boat. I guess you're new around here, but the Bill of Rights are not subject to change. Those are consecrated in the blood of the Revolution and the Civil War. Voting has ended. The Constitution changes. You don't have to be a constitutional scholar. Like, nobody knows all of it, but the Bill of Rights, the will of the people, is specifically enumerated in the Bill of Rights. Whereas, you know, the legislature decide what's in all our best interest. The communists want the Second Amendment because the the IRS wouldn't know a religion if it jumped out and bit their asses off from suborbital airspace. And we have people with different interpretations of what exactly how to apply the Bible, like what's protected for purposes of whether or not you obtain immunity from democracy, because democracy in and of itself, democracy alone, implying consent of the governed, it's not blanket immunity. And as far as like persecution of the unclean things, like what are the unclean things? I mean, where were you when I was at the Chinese buffet just grabbing fistfuls of shrimp? You're picky. See, the thing is, like, while the Saudis spy on us and say, "Oh, okay, his religion," because they say if we sin or we tolerate wickedness, then we have a different religion. So they make up new religions on our behalf. I mean, 72, we got Roe versus Wade and the Libyan Satanic Bible and all these weird sacrifices and cults and chupacabra. Well, the Saudis are making up new religions, and there are cults here specifically. I mentioned on my Twitter, Antifa_gold, which just what they do is they fulfill the prophecy. Whatever they say happened, they make sure it happened, and then it would only been a matter of time before it leaked. And now there's some hungry tribe in the third world doing it, and we got fundamentalist Christians, fundies, playing records backwards. Oh, it's Satan! The first thing they wanted to do was connect the attacks to our celebrities, because Jane Fonda crossed the line where we couldn't follow in Vietnam, and I know why she did that. At least I know why she's forgiven. The Central Intelligence Agency did not order a hit on John F. Kennedy. They did not call Jack Ruby and say he's snitching. All these hypotheses, these crazy conspiracy theories revolve around Oswald. I've seen simulations that I may or may not have seen some footage, but since de Gaulle, France does not have the control that we had come to rely upon prior to the foundation of the United Nations. This is why the Viet Cong were called Charlie. Nobody told me this. Greek thought, linguistics, a lot of cross-referencing, analyzing. But the rational clearing of the Central Intelligence Agency by James W. Douglas in the JFK and the Unspeakable, basically when JFK couldn't get through to Castro, and he boloed the Bay of Pigs. People were thinking it was the CIA because he messed up their op. But now he created a back channel so he could negotiate with Castro, and they were like, well, we don't know what was said, we don't know what was promised, and if the station desk back in Cambridge isn't generating enough juice to get around the United Nations, he doesn't have the intel support. I don't know if that part's in there. I'm just telling you. Are they anticipating something? Well, he's delisted. That means they just can't. They can't assert the kind of control that they do without taking liability if something does happen. How cruel! Well, look what happened. They weren't even liable, and they got nailed to a cross for the past 60 years. I mean, no offense to the you know, the Kennedys are their extended or mutual friends, but when have you ever tried to put yourself in the shoes of someone in a moving plane from Texas back to Annapolis with a squad of Secret Service on the other side of the door, having to extract a projectile to see where the where it came from with a penknife. It wasn't a satanic ritual. They know what I'm talking about. Subsequent trade embargoes prove it. So it was not witness. I did not witness. I found a rational explanation, and someone was getting over. And I ain't paying for that. Acting like you can conduct or even permit treason to go uninvestigated and just pass the buck to me hinges upon what sovereign immunity gives you that right, because we have the Bill of Rights and then we have Get Back in Your Boat. I'm not allowed to read books, Langley. The United Nations, it's a threat to the United Nations Flat Earth Authority. Knocked down 3 towers with 2 planes and a paper fire. We're the boss around here now. How much jet fuel? Slope it on. The whole point of the exercise was that we are nuts. We are unfit for governance. They appointed Idi Amin to rule over the Scots. That's why 92 Olympics, New Jack City, LA riots. But they didn't just they didn't just penalize us, persecute us, rob us, rape us, and blame us on behalf of Idi Amin. They sent uh, a Nazi uh, sovereign to go play house in California so they could get away with blackmailing celebrities and the legislature. To put all this into context, when I was 3 years old, I moved to New Jersey without my dad, but I have his name. So apparently, the Russians wanted me to go to a certain preschool. The Russians, whatever keeps the Cold War alive. There, I ran afoul of a kid of no words who was head and shoulders taller than me, and he abused me for several days. And then one day, I happened to look just in time. I was 3 years old. He was 8. I don't know what he was in my preschool. You know, these gambling types. Atlantic City, Pleasantville. I see the look on my friend's face, and I see what she's looking at. And this kid is already he's already right on top of me with his head down, like he's just trying to stampede me. So I was like, "Well, how about some of this?" And I stuck my ankle out, and he did an emergency landing, no landing gear. He slid on his face on the those mats that they have. I was like, "Whoa!" And he rolled over and he starts making these weird noises like, and just like I'm like I'm about to die right now, and I'm gonna die anyway. I may as well. I had some brand new Timberlands the first day I ever wore them. May as well try these out. Wham! On his face. Well, that 8-year-old turned out to be the firstborn son of a Soviet-born Canadian and German Protestant. So, and everybody's always real supportive, like they're German, and Germany it's largely Protestant. They interpret the Bible differently than we do. Whereas the Scots became Protestant after Mary, Queen of Scots, and the rise of the Satanic Temple in London. The Germans have been Protestant since 1453, and really that draws upon the sovereignty of the First Reich with Charlemagne. The problem with that is that their introduction to Christianity, which they were already Christian, but not you. So their introduction to this new peasant Christianity, was when the Saracens invaded France from Spain, and they were defeated by Charles Martel. But they're not here to attack your crown directly. They're here. They give candy to your kids and think they own them. Peasant Christianity. Yeah. See, if you're a king, that affects me. If you're a doctor, if you're a constable, a legate, a soldier, your religion might affect me. A nomad, caravan trader, your religion becomes relevant to me. But I mean, all I ever wanted was what's right and fair and best for anybody. I was never led to believe, never expected anything else, and got used to that not being the case either. But I'm just a Smith. I'm not a Jackson. But I was raised by then, and I'd be goddamn if you're going to penalize my tribe on my behalf. Protection. Who's going to protect you from me? So I didn't know why people thought they would get away with scapegoating me for all the sins of New Jersey, but 2015, doctor ripped off the insurance company and sends collections after me. Which the only argument, okay, because I know he did, is that he was allowed to do that in his little castle. See, any place where you lock people up against their will, it represents a government. So all these corporate prisons on the land are a direct challenge to the authority of democracy itself. So not only can you not be elected to make us build your friends a prison, but the power to arrest is thereby in check. And these abominations started cropping up when the LaVeyan Satanic Bible and Roe versus Wade came together in one nifty package. Corporate Coke and Pepsi conversion of American souls for the Moloch. What people don't understand is that the hippies are Protestant. Whereas the Protestant nobility interprets the Bible as their authority to act as the hand of God. The peasants don't like it. That's probably why it's called Protestantism. Well, Protestantism derives its authority from Charlemagne, who was Charles Martel's son, who defeated the Saracens in lawful combat, but then didn't realize that with Islam, you can't just defeat the general. And this is where the legacy of raping people just to keep them in line comes from. So what Charlemagne did was, after being led by the hand by these wizards until he was an adult, starting off with a pocket full of gold nuggets and dust and precious gems and spices and rich perfumes, he sent a scroll to the Pope at the time, which not part of my forte, but anyway, so the Pope, before Leo II, writes back, "Dear Charlemagne, thanks for your letter. Just a courtesy. It's good to hear from you. You're the son of the guy that defeated the Muslims. Love, Papa. Can't wait to hear from you. Love, Papa." More of those gold nuggets. So Charlemagne and his wizard friends take this obligatory, just courtesy scroll from the Pope around to the, I don't want to say illiterate, they had runes, but basically the the, the Teutoburg Goths responsible for the Barian disaster in the time of Christ. And he says, look, you see it? It says my name on it, Charlemagne, dear Charlemagne, and then it's signed by the Pope. So, speak now and forever hold your peace. It's a holy writ commanding us to claim all the deeds and titles, all the nobility of Western Europe. Some people hold a grudge against the Saxons and the Normans, which, by the way, if you have any familiarity with lithology, you know, no affiliation. I don't hate them. I hate the sin, not the sinner. Well, the only reason it lives on to this day is the idea that either you're a slave of the prophet or the infidel. Okay, only he has authority. We're his slaves. You can either be one of his slaves too, or, I mean, Islam is the only one that relies so heavily upon whether you like it or not. Just say there is but one Allah and Muhammad is his prophet, or suffer, beat you until you confess falsely before the Lord, declare that you're crazy. That king's argument, that caliph, that sheikh, his assertion of authority is that you're the Muslim, not him. But it turns out that Islam works just as well with the Bible. You're not allowed to read it. So Charlemagne unites the Vikings with the Muslims, the Black Forest and Rhine River Valley. And I don't know where they got all the minerals. Maybe they're still laying around from the Bavarian disaster, but he was Frankish, so that's the reason they latched on him. He had sovereignty of filial tied to the land and its people. And when he was acknowledged by the Pope, the Vikings really couldn't argue. They couldn't read it. So what they did was they banned reading. Anyone caught reading is a witch. A spy could come and find information about your holdings, your deeds and titles. They can give information to people who will find your estate and sabotage, subvert, and usurp your throne. But peasants don't have time for spies. They don't even know what that is. They don't own anything. Their property. They're not allowed to leave. So, witches, on the other hand, where do we get the burning the heirless widows of a household? The Vikings just, may as well get it over with. They put the better use. So, anyone without a protectorate caught practicing their spells they would often be thrown into a lake, and if they sank, they were clean. But if they floated, it's witchcraft and demonic possession. Burn them at the stake, because it's very important that you don't realize that this isn't actually a religion. This is just old Babylonian, pharaonic, Mithrin, feudalistic, nomadic, prehistoric slave raiding tradition. Islam is not a religion. It qualifies as a cult because they do perform last rites. But Well, that establishes a filial tie to the land. We're not sailing around the world to prove it's flat. It's just um, not what we consider a viable risk reward investment. They have property in London. I'm not trying to rain on your parade. I'm just saying, don't expect us to rationally, and we're not going to war for to propagate and perpetuate that. Can you imagine not being allowed to be smarter than a Muslim Washington? Well, I guess you've been imagining something like that for the past 20 years. You didn't know about it. Doesn't mean it was classified. You wanted me to teach lessons. You could have just buzz, buzz, ring, ring, knock, knock. I was a doorman for a long time. Various prestigious establishments. Worked for the refineries. A driver. You could have said something to my face. Ample opportunity. I had no reason to suspect that someone was taking, for instance, character names, things that I don't have total control over, that have limited character sets to choose from, and adaptation is trying to make something catchy out of it, and then trying to interpret it some kind of way because I study etymology, some kind of negotiation, like as if the video game were a legally binding platform for whatever you thought you could get away with. So I am an anti-disestablishmentarian, anti-fascist. Fascism rejects the church, corrupts your government, expands it, collapses it, and blames the church, leaving you holding the bag for the decimation of your own flock. So after watching this doctor in his little castle rip off the insurance company in 2014, I checked out early, and things got weird before I even got home. Why is this so important all of a sudden? Well, I said no. I don't want to slip back into the reason I was seeing the doctor to begin with, and it's just not. It's ugly. I mean, I didn't actually cross any lines that I can't cross back. She's deaf. No, it wasn't fun to listen to. But why be listening? Why be waiting when I got here? So anyway, 2015 collections comes around, and I know what it is immediately. I study theologies. I know insurance fraud when I see it. I'm a doorman. I know collections when I see it. But I'm not joining you. That's disrespectful. The only thing I could get was something about the other side of the country. And then I'm looking at my feed and something about that blonde girl. And there's threats, which bounce right off me. I can tell if you're serious or not until someone forces me and until someone lies about an agreement between us, tells people that I was going to do something because they think they can just say, well, you did it before. And usually they get away with it. Well, I wasn't paying any mind because I've had jingleheads following me around for a long time. I did want to know what people's problem was, but nobody would be forthcoming. They all had a whole lot to say out the side of their mouth, but it didn't make any sense. Like, I'm supposed to just volunteer to just spill beans at the first opportunity, but I want to know more. I don't know what it's worth. 40 grand, I heard. Well, that's the doctor. So I tried to sue him, but the lawyer was waiting for me. He took me for, in total, 5 or 6 consultations at full price. All right, do you know anybody who can investigate this? I know a detective. Okay, like, I got people looking at my packets and spreading rumors and trying to hold what something against me based on the presumption that this will hold up in some rational authority, or just deliver it at gunpoint, or just silence them too before they have a chance to speak to it. So it doesn't even matter. Then I am made aware that someone parked a new space program on Kennedy, and I'm like, does that have to be in the front yard like that? It's the shrine to the greatest American president. I mean, the beacon, the light to guide the Irish. So I, overhearing something that only makes sense one way, even though it's obviously a terrible misunderstanding. I don't want them to suffer for the misunderstanding because I'm twice your size. I'm gonna go clear up that misunderstanding because they're not threatening me. It's a threat to them. I don't care very much about them. If they were threatening me, they were under a mistaken impression, and if they were forced to surrender control to a third party, they didn't have my consent. So, well, I go back. I don't know what happened because I went back. I called the place with where the smart people, and I asked about a thing, and the guy just starts spilling his guts. So that sounds like I need all that, but I'll see you in a few days. There was a box truck set up on a bridge in New Orleans, and there was a decoy on the side. They were waving flashlights as if to warn me, not distract me from the looming dark box truck in the left lane. Oh, I'm not real big on decoy. It's just a fucking light. Excuse my French. Excuse our French. Pardon our French. Our French, not the new ones. So yeah, I see the box trucks, and I void, and the truck just kind of drifted sideways in the next lane. Never done anything like that before, but I was so discombobulated that I didn't shift and accelerate, and the car that had been following me with no headlights slammed in the back of me at 100 miles an hour. 100, yeah, I was going 100. At this point, it has been 9 years that I know of, and you're just now telling me that all these people dying and stuff actually has something to do with me, but them and not me. It wasn't my friends Washington at all. So I went all the way back out there. I took everything I could borrow. I took everything I had of value. My inheritance was gone, but I didn't get much of an inheritance. But my mom's inheritance, and I get all the way out there, and they're waiting for me. I get out of the car in California, and there's some street kid. I don't know, like one of the older ones, real scruffy, dirty, and he's across the street behind a wall, and he sees me get out of the car, out of the truck, and he's like, "She's dead." So I'm in the right place, right? I wasn't there to learn all the skills, the techniques. I wasn't there to learn how to sell drugs I don't even like. I was there to try to parlay with the cartel I bankrupted. So I went to the mission and I cooked breakfast and lunch for about 150 people. I went to the various places where if someone was supposed to know who I was, they would have. I gave away socks, fresh out of the package in front of the bookstore, to the street kids. And I listened. And they gave me their approximation. I don't think that they were necessarily plants. I think they were just parroting the energy, the aura of that place at that time. So you got to understand, an indirect encounter is not binding. You don't just walk by me. You don't act like just because somebody did some wickedness I don't even know about, walk by me, that I'm obliged to smite him so that you can sit down and tell me what you think it's about. I'm not obligated to the limitations of what passes for intelligence. These days, Homeland Security couldn't coordinate their dick in the dark without backup. I didn't want to commit one way or another. I know the CIA came up, but I didn't want to give the impression that they could play it either way or the other because I didn't actually do anything. So why would anyone think that they should do something and then make it look like I had anything to do with it? I can't commit one way or the other because if it's a cartel and I go CIA, the cartel's going to whack me. If I go cartel, now I got to prove something to the new space program, basically, because in 2014-15, they liquidated the Doppler array at my old SATCOM training unit. And parked the new space program, a new corporate space program, right on Kennedy's shrine. That's there for a reason. I mean, he was sacrificed in the line of duty to the shock and horror of the civilized world. And Vietnam was no laughing matter. But Charles de Gaulle was not a terrorist, contrary to popular belief, especially since the talkies. Just because you have more money does not mean you have the right. The Bible does not make you God. My God is omnipotent and eternal. So I went out there prepared to die so that these innocents wouldn't pay the price for somebody thinking they could get away with whatever on my behalf. I'm trying to clear it up. I'm looking for leads. I'm doing things that I ordinarily would not. But they followed me into that holy place with their big mouths, saying my name, alleging various whatever they expected me to pay for. And I got bigger fish to fry. It's cruel and unusual being investigated by morons. What's your problem, Langley? I was looking for you the whole time. You're gonna delist me because you got lied to? This is a sad situation. Saudis set up cabinet after cabinet. I got already got the Drug Enforcement Administration. And now the disease control, so drugs and disease. So this is not a kosher apparatus. You can have the DEA and be kosher. You can't have corporate prisons and be a democracy. But let's not be too hasty, news team, before you go asserting some kind of mastery over the land and its people. Understand that I assert custodianship, dominion, responsible, rational authority. I'm twice your size. Look at you, look at me. I'm sorry you got hemmed up, but when I tell you, I didn't know anything about it until they thought they could kill me. I had no reason to look into it until I quantified a green light. My protection ran out. I gotta make 40 grand for the police right now. Have we met? Have we done business? Just you getting ripped off. You're not gonna pass the buck to me. That's so. I stayed out there, and I approached people who look like members of the community, people with jobs, people with better things to do than let the heathen take their town apart. And I said, where can I park my truck for the night? Where's a good spot where you know, I won't be subject to vagrancy laws or unapproachable by responsible, capable, reasonable people. It wasn't until I got back that I found out in my prior visit that after I sat next to just the sweetest, most innocent, charming little Colombian girl, after I got off the bus, and she got off further down the line, they were waiting for her, and they raped her, and then they made her a whore so that they could argue she already was. I knew not that such evil existed. Why me? What did I do to deserve that kind of attention? Have we done business? My people wouldn't be caught dead anywhere near you.